Just a quick video here. After Deontay Wilder lost to Tyson Fury in that second fight, I get the sense that some of the other PBC fighters started to look at Deontay kind of sideways, because Deontay went missing for a good few months. I think a lot of the PBC guys were looking at Deontay like, yo, you're supposed to be the leader of PBC, right? In terms of the fighters, you're supposed to be the main guy, the face of it. We're supposed to be looking up to you and rallying behind you. And you've taken a loss from Tyson Fury and you've gone missing. You're letting this guy clown you, calling you out on social media, where you at? Your face is turning up on the back of milk cartons. What's going on? You're making us look bad. I get the impression that some of the PBC fighters started to feel that way about Deontay. And I think that once him and his brother started coming out with all these claims about Fury cheating, in fact, started before that, when he was making the excuse about the weight of his costume, and then later on came out of all these claims of Tyson Fury cheating and a plot against him, I think that some of the PBC fighters again started to look at Deontay a bit sideways, maybe started to distance themselves from him a little bit. Now, one of the claims that Deontay made is that Mark Breland was in on a plot. He was basically a double agent for Team Fury. This is what Wilder's claiming. Mark Breland was a double agent for Team Fury. This is what he claims. And the reason he threw in the towel was to make sure that Tyson Fury won. I mean, I'm sure it had nothing to do with the fact that Deontay was getting absolutely battered. I'm sure it had nothing to do with that, right, Deontay? No. He thinks that it was Mark Breland basically saving Tyson Fury. Deontay at one point said that he had Tyson Fury right where he wanted him in that 7th round. You couldn't make this stuff up. Luckily, you don't have to, because Deontay actually said it, or words to that effect. Now, here we have an interview with Andre Dirrell. And he admits, I did it. He told Mark Breland to stop the fight. Now, perhaps on some of those Wilder fanboy channels, they've already discussed this situation. And I'm sure they believe that Dirrell was also in on this plot to dethrone Deontay Wilder by throwing in the towel. But in reality, the reason that Dirrell would have been telling Mark Breland to throw in the towel is because Mark Breland is a very shy person, a quiet person. Not the boldest guy out there, despite the fact he was a professional fighter and a real good puncher, world champion, tremendous amateur. But he's a very, very quiet guy. I think that he would have needed to be nudged by a guy like Andre Dirrell, who didn't want to see Deontay Wilder get hurt. Perhaps he knew that Mark Breland was very anxious and very worried about his fighter. I'm sure Dirrell cared as well. They saw a guy who needed to be saved from himself. Deontay Wilder, say what you want to say about him, and I say a lot about him. He's a warrior. He's a brave man. There's no doubt about it. Okay? You look at that Tyson Fury fight, there was no quitting Wilder. Even though Larry Holmes accused Deontay Wilder of quitting, I mean, I don't really see it. Larry likes to talk smack about so many heavyweights over the years. You know, he's talking smack about Mike Tyson. He used to talk smack about Lennox Lewis. He's talked smack about so many heavyweights. Larry Holmes is a bitter man. Okay, he's always been that way. And again, he accused Deontay of quitting against Tyson Fury in the second fight. I'm not sure how he worked that out. But either way, I don't believe Deontay Wilder quit in that fight. Far from it. I think he showed tremendous bravery. But in boxing, you have to save fighters from themselves. If they're showing that kind of bravery, and clearly the odds are totally against them, They're getting battered from pillar to post. They haven't had any success, as Wilder hadn't in that Fury rematch. You have to have people that are going to step in and stop the fight so we don't see a tragedy. There's been enough tragedies in boxing. People seriously injured, people who have died. In a fight that high profile, it would hurt the sport even more because there are so many more people watching it for somebody to end up in a seriously bad way or die. We don't want that for Deontay Wilder's family. We don't want that for the sport. Okay, so Andre Dirrell, of course, I'm sure, has some type of rapport with Deontay. I know he has a rapport with Deontay's former trainer, Mark Breland. And he decided to nudge Breland in the direction and said, no, get him to stop this fight. You're going to see something horrible here if we don't end it now. So kudos to Andre Dirrell for nudging Breland in that direction and telling him get up there and stop this fight. Kudos to him for that. Now, interestingly, going back to what I was talking about earlier on in this video, one of the Charlos has hired Mark Breland to be his coach or assistant coach or whatever. I think I did a video about this before, and I found it kind of curious. I was thinking, is this some kind of plot? Because that PBC world is like a cult. So I wouldn't put anything past them. Deontay coming out claiming that Mark Breland is a double agent and he's a snake and all this kind of stuff. If you have other people in the PBC cult believing that, maybe they would try and get revenge on Mark Breland on Deontay's behalf. I wouldn't put it past them. So that's what I was thinking about when I saw one of the Charlos hook up with Breland. I was like, are they trying to set Breland up or something? Like, what's going on there? But then again, maybe not. Maybe it's a situation where, as I said earlier on in the video, the PBC fighters, at least some of them, started to realize that Deontay is completely delusional. Like beyond even the levels of delusion they may have. Where he stepped over a certain line and their eyes were opened and they were like, okay, we were with you, Deontay, but now you're just gone a bit too far. Perhaps that's what was the case with Charlo, and that's why he decided to hire Breland. Because perhaps he believed that Breland was actually mistreated by Deontay Wilder and didn't deserve the accusations that Wilder threw at him. So, maybe. Let me know what you guys think about everything I've discussed in this video. Dirrell coming out. Again, according to Wilder's version of events, Dirrell necessarily must be, in on the plot that Wilder claims was hatched against him, right? Because he's saying that he's the one that told Breland to stop the fight. So, obviously, I don't believe any of this. As I've outlined in the video, I just think that Deontay Wilder needed to be saved from himself. And everybody could see that. Breland could see that. Dirrell could see it. Remember, Dirrell's a fighter. It's not a guy like JD's who's not a fighter. No, this guy's a fighter. He understands what it's like in the ring. Mark Breland was a fighter. They understand. To them, it's more than just about getting a bag. When they see a guy who needs saving from himself, they're going to know. More than a guy like JD's would know. So, yeah, anyway, let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below.